Okay, well, it's the top of the hour. I think we'll begin, and if people are joining us a bit late, that's all right. We're going to try to record this and provide access to it when after we're done the meeting. Thanks, everyone, so far for coming in. I'm Tom Bamford with InfoChip. I'm the VP of Channel Sales, one of the co-founders of the company about 15, 16 years ago, and I'm going to be showcasing some really interesting technology and solutions for the utility marketplace, how it's being used in the field by linesmen, and really what is it, how does it work, and we'll even leave some time at the end to answer some questions. So as an agenda, we just wanted to ensure that everyone understood the challenges of tracking assets and what this was really made for, how people are using it in the field, engaging your supply chain, the vendors and testing companies that are involved, the manufacturers that are involved, and many of them have been incorporating this kind of technology and for a number of years as an option or as a standard, so you can start leveraging it out in your sites. What is RFID? How does it work? You know, we encounter it in the daily lifestyle of anything from our quick pass going through a toll gate to retail shoplifting detection and supply chain solutions. But what does it mean for the utility marketplace, for linesmen and tool tracking? We'll walk through that. We'll do a demo. We'll show it how it's used in the field with customers that I've had the hands-on experience with, and they've told me what they get out of it, what are the benefits for them. And what's interesting, there's always a different story, and that's what's exciting. It really can proliferate across many classes of equipment. What are the options to get going? How do you get it off the ground? Some simple steps of where to start, and then we'll open the floor to Q&A. You might already have some questions cooking, and we'll come to those at the end, and I'll open up all the microphones for it. You're on mute right now, but in about 25 minutes we'll open that up, and I hope we can wrap up in half an hour. I expect to. So thanks again for joining us, and we'll progress with just talking a bit about what is this proposition. So we're trying to help you answer what is it, where is it, and is it safe to use? So the gist of it, that's what we're pushing for. When we track tools, they're difficult to identify. Those numbers become tough to read. They move around, of course, especially in the utility market, from yard to shop to testing lab to the trucks and back and forth multiple cycles per year. And there's liability with these. Safety is important. It's just not like a screwdriver that if you lose it, it's not a big deal. This is life and death, and people have to get their arms around tracking this equipment. When you bring digital technology, which we talked about RFID already, but smartphone apps, web reporting, an ecosystem that lets the database move between parties, we reduce the effort of tracking this by 30 to 45%. So it becomes more effective. You can actually start accomplishing something. And then you move on to the analytics and the smart thinking about your equipment and avoid loss and all the other benefits. But purely the process is reduced by 30 to 45%. And at the end of the day, what we're doing is we're lowering the total cost of ownership of that asset from its purchase to its process. Now you're watching my screen in real time, so you might see some messages pop up. So what are the challenges? Well, when you're using traditional paper and spreadsheets, which is what we found is the typical tracking method, and there's more sophisticated systems coming along, but this is the common denominator. There's a tremendous amount of data entry, and it's not necessarily timely or accurate. Moving to mobile apps on smartphones and tablets and a web cloud database provides you a timely system with avoiding data entry again and again and again, avoiding scanning documents and putting them in piles. It really helps in a digital method put a footprint on where things are, when they were moved, what they are. It just streamlines it so much. When you come into identification and inventory management, traditional serial numbers as a standalone become difficult. You can see a shot here of this glove with the stamp getting worn off. Who knows what date that was last tested? The pole's ID tag is gone and missing. And when you survey a truck, how much time does it take with a clipboard to run through all the items and tell people to bring them back for their cycle? RFID takes care of this. It's accurate. It's unique. It sticks to the product to its life. It works in the rain and the snow. You can also utilize barcoding if there's a scenario where an RFID chip's not on the product yet or can't fit onto the product. We're also working with manufacturers in the utility marketplace. And in fact, we have a guest from Columbus McKinnon here who has an RFID strategy on lifting products that we've worked with for a number of years. And you see, it can come in at the factory level, it can be retrofit. So this is a technology that is coming to you from different places, but of course you have millions of kit that needs to be RFID chipped, so retrofitting is a big part of the plan. Challenges again, scheduling and replacement. The cycles every 6 months of pulling the product back for testing. You have to have a replacement before they can go out on the next job, so you have multiple sets in transit all the time. Well, automating alerts telling people when items are due or overdue through email, and oversight accountability to management to ensure somebody else sees if there's neglect out in the field. Data entry. Now, I've talked to companies trying some of this software out in the field, and you know what we typically hear is there's so much typing, there's so much data entry. How can you help? Well, what we do is you start building in pre-fills, drop-downs, avoiding the typing, integrations possibly to, if you're in a lab, to your work order system, if you're a customer into databases or spreadsheets from the past, pulling them in to avoid data entry. And this is so important in ecosystem between manufacturers, the vendor, the test centers, the customers. You know, pulling them into a team avoids a lot of data entry, a lot of the paperwork. So here's an example of that in motion as an ecosystem. At the point of sale, equipment, and here's a shot of our DuraPatch going onto a glove. Assets are being equipped at that point, and the information about the asset is being uploaded into a software program available to the client down the road. Testing's happening. The certificate gets uploaded as well. And the schedule is at 6 months, is it 9 months? What is your turnover? And then the customer, the end user, can do inventory tracking. They can assign the products to their truck, to their users, to their stock house. They can view the profile out in the field. They can see the status. Is it due or overdue? Any photos, diagrams, certificates. It's accessible from a smartphone or the web. So this good information being uploaded at the beginning of the cycle is leveraged and referenced. And then you get into the inspection side as well as analytics. What have I got? Who's losing equipment? How long is it lasting? Repair. Well, eventually this comes to a point where it's at a shop again, and people are having to tinker and repair. This information can be uploaded as well. The status, the invoice, the document. And then it gets reordered when it has to finish through its life cycle. So that reorder can go to the purchasing team, to the vendor, because you have the description, you have the make and model, you have the size. This is already in a system. So why not pump that out in a digital method rather than call it in or have to type it out again? This can go to your own inventory loft, or it can go back out to the vendor in real time. So this data entry problem is eliminated when you bring in the team to take care of the problem. And we forecasted this early 15 years ago because our first client was an industrial distributor who tested products, who fabricated and sold products into the oil field. So we understood very quickly it takes a team to take this challenge on. RFID. So let's talk a bit about this and what does it mean, because you're probably experiencing it, you're seeing it coming to you, and there's some options here to think about. So here's a shot of a Bluetooth reader, and it's about the size of a fob of a keychain. And this is zapping a chip. Now there's different chips for different purposes. There's also barcoding that might fit into play. And I'll let you know that serial number tracking still works. It's not as efficient, but it can still happen. So how does this RFID stuff go? Well, there's a chip, and it's the size of a pinhead, and it has antenna coils around it, and it's podded, and then it's insulated into a form factor like this little plug chip you see here, or a patch, or a sticky, or a hanging chip. There's all these types, and we'll show those in a moment. But when you scan the chip through radio waves, it activates the chip, and it sends back a unique number to your reader. It's that simple. There's no battery in that chip. It's passive. It's also intrinsically safe. And they don't have to get replaced, you see. They go forever. Now, how do you get the chip number into your device? Well, Bluetooth connects your reader and drops the chip ID into your software. Now, you could use that in existing systems. So if you've already got a whiz-bang tracking platform, you could use RFID and plug it into that. Or if you're needing an application, applications are available, like what we've got here for a mobile app or the web, and it will drop the chip number in, and then it'll bring back the information already added earlier on. So that's the Bluetooth connecting to the device, but RFID is what got the chip ID in the first place. No two chip IDs are the same. So you have uniqueness, you have accuracy. You don't try to scribble a number that was a 3 or an 8 or an S. I'm not quite sure. It doesn't get worn out. It lasts and it holds. Now, we manufacture chips. We have them in the deep sea of the Gulf of Mexico, the North Slope of Alaska, and everything in between. So we make these to last in the field, downhole drilling tools to linesman tools. Passive UHF. Now, I'm getting a little more technical, but everybody will follow. It's not terrible. Passive means there's no battery in it. It works with the RFID waves of the reader. And when you go with the UHF type of chip, it's the standard now going forward for the majority of industry by and large, because it has capabilities that allow you to read at short range and sometimes at a bit longer range. It's affordable. It's getting embedded in all sorts of product in the world. It's the new standard, the new normal. What you've also encountered if you do a search and Google this stuff, there's active tags with batteries. And they tend to be big, and they need a big gate reader and infrastructure, which is expensive. And that might work well when you're doing shoplifter detection with a large tag. But they have to be replaced because there's a battery in them. And you need the infrastructure. And frankly, they don't typically fit on tools very well because their size, their form factor is too big, and they're expensive. So suddenly now the economics don't make the equation work real well. We have embedded millions of chips on millions of pieces of equipment, and the price point makes a difference. It has to be affordable to do this. We'll get into that in a moment. GeoSense, well, these are these real-time tracking chips that people put onto bulldozers and pallets for the yard, and you subscribe to a system, a data system to know where they are because they have to go through a cell phone network and so forth. And that's terrific if you've got a $15,000 asset, but it doesn't work so much for a $250 power drill, you see. And I just wanted to ensure people understood the landscape of this because there's different horses for different courses. Now, when we get into UHF, there's short range and long range. The short range, we're talking about typically tools and gloves and equipment, and you're going to be within a couple of inches to scan them to ensure you're getting the right product at the right distance. So that's what is the common denominator typically is short range. We also are manufacturing some of these in a longer range, so you get up to 25 feet. But what you'll notice is it's a larger chip. That's about a 2-inch by 2.5-inch chip, pretty hard to put onto a glove or a hot stick, or even garments. So you're not going to get the read range for that kind of equipment. And regardless, you can't read any of this through a metal door in a truck or inside of a back of a pickup at speed. You can't read it that way. So even with 25 feet, you couldn't read through a truck. This is terrific, though, for yard management. Here's a pile of transformers getting scanned out before they leave. I know where my stuff is going in, going out. It's terrific for rental as well. Now, when you get into surveying and you have to know if that transformer is doing well up on the tower every year, you can do a drive-by in the truck. The man can bring out his gun and shoot at the pole chip, which is correlated with a parent-child to a chip on the transformer, and then he doesn't have to get out there to see it. So there's ways of identifying equipment from a distance with the longer range stuff that's still affordable. There's no data plan, there's no battery. It gives you a bit more read range than 2 inches, but it's not something that you can track from a satellite, okay? That's when you're getting into those GeoSense type of technologies we don't play in, but we try to focus on what's affordable, reasonable, and gets you off the ground. So that's the reader type and chips. It is an open platform. InfoChip designs and manufactures all those chips as mentioned, but we also have technologies to work with what's coming to you. So Salisbury have Electroflex chips coming in. Really excited to see that. I know they had an initiative about 8 years ago where they were rolling one in the glove bead, and it was a low-frequency glass chip at the time because that was kind of state-of-the-art, and it had a limited potential, but now something's been developed in a stronger sense. It is not my chip inside, but it is a UHF chip. So it's a terrific way of approaching safety for glove tracking. You're seeing the tool manufacturers coming in with low Bluetooth energy chips, which is a different type of approach to tool tracking, but we have readers and technology that can integrate it. And then you've got fall protection. You've got other products that might have a different type of chip. Well, we pull it together to ensure that you don't have to cobble a solution. It is out of the box and workable with a variety of technologies, even if it is with our chip or someone else's that might have sourced it themselves. We are open. So attaching it, how do I get it onto my gear? Well, the DuraPatch is an adhesive chip. It's insulated with a rubber patch. It is dielectric tested and sticks onto a variety of rubber product. It will go through wash cycles, high temperature. It will go through the abuse of washing and in the field as well. We have a sticky DuraDisc. It's going onto a flat surface, so you see these in hoists quite a bit. You can put it in a recessed zone on the grounder jumpers, fall protection tools, even on the tip of one of those readers. The cloth chip, and I've got a great quote coming up about how that's saving money for people, but the DuraCloth sews in. So this is an example of something in the collar. I have to confess that's actually a firefighter jacket, not a typical linesman jacket, because we're doing some work with some firefighter gear that gets done too, and it goes into even a nastier extreme than the linesman gear, so I wanted to just pop it on there. The plug chip, these are tiny 9mm chips that embed. So if it has nowhere to put it as a sticky chip, you can embed it with a drill bit and pop that in with no glue or adhesive because it just squeeze fits in. You might have seen that kind of technology already in shackle pins and such, hose fittings. We've been doing this for a number of years. And the DuraBand Micro, that bands on or hangs on to a little zip cable, and you see this often on an area where you can just cinch it down. The DuraZip is a more heavy-duty cinched chip. It threads through and has a 2,000-pound braking strength. So there's different types that you could attach it to. Here's something on a chain master link assembly. And then the multi-mount. We showed a shot of that earlier for yard management and transformers and bigger equipment for longer read range. I wouldn't put that onto my glove, but it can bolt on or hang on to another type of product. In our video on our website, we have a scenario. We went out to Fortis, Alberta, and if you zip closer to about 3 minutes into the video, you're going to see a lot of these applications in play. So here's some shots of it. I'm not going to walk through the whole video here because it is on our site, but it's showing how they've applied it to different tools and products in the field. So what have we seen from clients? We've been doing this a long time in different industries. We have a lot of users, tens of thousands of them, hitting the system, using it to track the safety of products. But in utility specific, I talk about AltaLink, a transmission company that covers a territory bigger than the state of Texas. They have 75 plus linesmen, and an area of focus for them at the start was saying, we've got to get our arms around FR clothing. And they did, and they found over a 30% reduction in loss by putting those chips in the collar. And in fact, they've asked their manufacturer, MWG, to sew them in for them at the point of manufacture. So they're lasting longer, they're a premium product, and they're also not getting lost because people have accountability. Speaking of which, Fortis, Alberta, their big push at the genesis of this was power tools. Now, they also use it, both of these companies use it for dozens of other applications, but they had this low-hanging fruit. And for them, power tools was the deal. So they started chipping them, and they find that there's accountability. People know they're being tracked. They're not dropping them behind or taking them home, or, there's accountability, so people take care of them. And Downer in Australia, they cover the entire country. And a big plus for them was the supplier tie-in to help the data entry. All of these companies have engaged their suppliers for that purpose. If I talk to LADWP, well, they began with rigging and wanting to get a grasp on that stuff, slings and such. So there's, again, low-hanging fruit, and everybody has to focus on where they go best. Let's talk about an action item of seeing this in the field. What does it look like? So I'd like to do a demo now, and I'm going to open this up to showing you my smartphone app. I'm going to reduce this PowerPoint over so we can see it just on the side of a checklist as I go through some scenarios. And I'm going to bring up the software and the demo and the chip and let you see it in real time. So the first thing I'm going to do is come online and add an asset. I'm going to do it through a web browser. So I'm going to come into InfoChip, and I'm going to log in. Now, remember I mentioned we have these videos, and we have a shot of the patch chip and applications in the field. And from my homepage, you simply click through Industry Served Power Utilities. Now, I'm going to log in here, and I'm going to have to put in my username and password because it is protected with security for different logins. No one sees the same stuff unless they build an ecosystem with certain permissions with their suppliers and customers. But it is a secure database. I'm presented with a dashboard. I can find an item. I can come in here and I can search for history of the item and such. But just the first thing I want to do today is add a new asset, because people always say, how'd you get it in there? How did it start? Now, we can upload legacy spreadsheets and data if you have a database of your registry of equipment. We can upload them. But for new gear going in, people are going to come in, they're going to put in a serial number. They could add a chip ID. I'll just fake one for just now. And then they pick the category. So when I come into electrical utilities, I tell people this stuff's out of the box. Look, it's already here ready to go. Let's do a strain stick. So I come into live lifting, I pop down to sticks, and I'll pick strain stick just for a particular item to demo. And when I pick strain sticks, it brings back attributes for that stick: diameter, length. I mean, if it was glove, it wouldn't have diameter, would it? It'd have size or class. But in this case, it's a stick. Now, I don't want to do all this typing, so golly, I'll just pick a prefill, and it fills it in for me because I already had that preloaded. So I know the size, I know the working load limit, even a part number is there, and a photo is associated to that category. And then I can come in here and I can say I'm going to assign it to a particular customer or my own team if I'm putting it in for my team. The location, I'll put it in here to truck 1, and I'm going to assign it to Jeff, and I'm going to put in maybe an expiry date because I know well enough these things only last 6 years. Or you can leave it blank. I have the ability to rent items if that's my business, see if it's available. And EcoTake is a funky feature. If you're a manufacturer and you're putting this in at the factory, you'll let someone take ownership of that later on, maybe in 9 months when it lands on their desk, and they can bring this information into their client ID and InfoChip so they can leverage it going forward. So that's a manufacturer feature available. Well, what else happens? I've got a schedule already defaulted for every 6 months in this case, and if it's going to be starting today, it's going to be due in, what do you know, August 1st, summertime, 6 months out. I have the ability to put additional attachments on, or child assets. So if this is a parent-child relationship, a great example is, a crane with a sling. I can group them together as parent-children. I can also create multiple items. If I've got 25 of these I'm popping in, and they're virtually all the same except maybe the diameter or the length is a touch different, I can copy and do multiples. So this is a speedy entry. This is a way to quickly put in an item. If you're performing testing and certifications, that's another form that links to this. But I wanted to quickly show you how you add an item. So now that I've done that, let's move on to the mobile app, and I'm going to show you what it looks like from a smartphone. I'm going to pull it up here on my screen. You're going to see my smartphone come in the background. Here, let's just put it right here. And here we are. Those are my apps. This is my smartphone, and I did a presentation, and somebody was joking the other day. I've got a lot of emails I haven't answered. So I've got you on mute, so no more comments. Let's pop into the app here. So in my app, I've got all these items I can look at. I can search for them just by scrolling through, but we're all about identification here. So we can scan the chip, we can scan a barcode, or we can key in a serial number. If I scan a barcode, it brings up the camera, and I could zap a barcode. But I could also come in here and take a chip. So here's my DuraPatch chip. Here's one of those sew-in chips, the little plug, the DuraBand Micro, and a sticky DuraDisc. I'm gonna come in here and scan a couple of these just to show you what they look like. So I'll turn off the camera mode, and I'll click scan. And what I'm going to do is pull up a reader. I've got it Bluetooth connected to my smartphone, and I'll come into something like a stick. So here, let me just zap that, and it brings back my link stick. So here's some information about that. Well, let's try another one. Let's scan my glove chip. and it brings back something different, a glove. And that has been managed in the last week or two, so it's green status. And I can come in and look at the information. What do I have here? Description, great. Location, it's on trailer 5. And a GPS coordinate, last time I scanned it, it stamps from the phone where I was. So we have a link on the web to see a map of where all your equipment was last scanned. It's active. Its expiry date is coming up in 5 years, and its next certification date is a little ways away, so I'm safe on that one. Great. What else do I need to know about this? It's a size 10 glove. I've got attributes that describe it from the vendor, and then I have completed work that has been done in the past, a variety of daily inspections, certs of compliance, and I can even jump into looking at information like checklists. I've got photos of maybe there's a scuff on the edge of the glove. And then my certificate of test is here if I wanted to reference it. So all those documents are available on a smartphone from the field guy if he needs it. But let's do some work with this thing. I've done the identification. We saw the status. Let's move it around. I can select multiple items and move them at once. So if I've got a pile of 20 pairs of gloves, I could scan them, boop, 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 and move them all to truck 1. That takes 2 clicks in the software and moving your reader across the chips for 20 seconds for a pile of gloves. How quick is that? You see, when we talk about accountability, in the past with a spreadsheet and a clipboard of paper, who's to say it was even done properly? This way, you have a timestamp, a GPS. It goes in there in seconds. It's really effective. But let's just show a very simple, I'll pull the glove up, a very simple move. How would it be if I just wanted to move it from one trailer to another? So I just pick my site, and I've got a list of them. I could add a new trailer onto the list. If I have trailer 8 now and it's not on the list, I can just move it, and that's it. It's just that simple to move it. And then I want to do maybe some work like an inspection. Well, that's a fill form for us. You could click and pass it. That's really fast. There's only one click if it's perfect. But if there's a problem, let's fill in a form. And you could have different forms available to you. In this case, we'll just do the linesman daily glove inspection. We'll continue along, and we can see that there's different criteria for pass and fail. This poor guy put a hole in it. So let's say we fail it, and we're going to actually add perhaps a photo of the problem. We can put in some notes, and he's going to just come into his notes bar here, and he's going to dictate it and say, sorry, I poked a hole in it. Just take it off my next paycheck. All right, done. And there's the notes and the photo and the failure all saved. And when you click sync, it will upload to the cloud next time you're in data access or on a Wi-Fi. You don't have to work in real time in the field soaking up data plan. This will keep it and then synchronize it later when you're ready. So I'm just going to cancel out of that because I don't think he really wants to pay for the glove. And I'll come back to see what I've got here. So I've done an inspection. I've moved it around. The last thing I'll show is reorder. And I bring this up because, you know what? The vendors love it. But you know who even loves it more? Is the team that are managing all the inventory of products. Because this particular reorder could go to their own internal procurement teams, or it could go right out to the vendor. You could pick email contacts, multiples, and then you put in, of course, the quantity, and I could put in the instructions. Well, I know the description says left hand, but I'll just remind you it's a left-hand glove and whatnot. And you can send that automatically with an email with the make, the model, the class, the size. All that good information goes in an automatic email to the recipient. So we know who needs what. And I've seen scenarios where orders are being sent, and sometimes they're sending what they think they want, but I didn't need size small, I needed size medium. I've got Bob on the truck now. So with so much turnover, there's a lot of wasted time getting the right stuff to the right people. The Reorder app is a great way to communicate what I need or don't need in that vein. And more workflows even getting developed into InfoChip for utilities to streamline some of those utility-oriented workflows. So we keep developing out the product. So now I've shown you the mobile app. What I'd like to do now is jump back to the web, and I'm going to show you some history of this item. So I'm going to go back to my dashboard, and I've got a glove, don't I? I'll just make this a little larger. I'll move this over. One moment, please. Make sure everybody can see this just fine. I've got a wide screen. I'll even zoom it up a bit. Maybe that'll help. And make sure you can see what I'm doing. So I've got this glove. Let's go find it. Okay, so this is the glove that I was tracking in the past, and I can see the profile of it and its next coming certification date. I can select it, and we come back and we see the status of photos, documents, and so forth. I can see its last date of test and inspection, its interval, all the completed inspections or testing performed, documents like that test certificate we saw on the smartphone. It's up here on the cloud too. So it's easy to see. I can access it in this place, but I also want to see location history. Where has it been? Who moved it? And when did it move? So you know when it's coming or going. We also have a GPS stamp, as mentioned, for the last time it was tracked, which is here. So there's your item, and there's the history of the item. I also have a great search filter for work history, and this is where we're coming in to see perhaps failures, missing products, and so forth. If you want to run a report, you can start analyzing the data a little different. So we're getting into stuff like, well, for example, for my truck 5, how many items are getting lost? What's on truck 5? And so forth. Well, I'll call it truck 1 in this case. So I can run a report and say, show me everything that failed, everything that passed, everything UTI meant unable to inspect. That means it's lost. That's what that truck's going through. And I can find out who's got the problems. There happens to be a lot of power drills missing. That's strange. Or, you know what, we don't have products missing at all. Things are lasting because every truck's got all the inventory it should have. So you can start analyzing these sorts of details and trends and what's passing or failing. If it gets scrapped, it never goes away in the database. It's always saved for analytics. We also on the dashboard have this schedule. So you can push, as mentioned, this alert of upcoming certifications to your team to pull equipment back. They are red, yellow, and green based on urgency. And what I do is set up a schedule so I have a particular report to email my different trucks. So for truck 1, I'm going to email Bobby and Frank. Frank's the boss. Bobby's the truck manager. And he gets, on the 1st of the month, a red, yellow, green report for overdue items. In this case, I just selected battery-operated tools. But it could be for everything on the truck. You see, this gets pushed to him automatically in oversight by his manager. So no red, yellow, green problems are there. It's just green. Everything is coming when it's supposed to be there. So that wraps up my demonstration. I did fly through a lot. There's more to it, but I just wanted to polish off the presentation by offering a little bit about implementation and then open question and answer. So where do people start? Well, where does the low-hanging fruit sit for you? What's the challenge you've got? Is it personal protective gear? Is it tools? Is it some new expense you're going to roll into for next year? You know, this is where you begin. Out of the box, so much of this is available in the system, you just have to start entering it. The cost, people ask, what does this really begin with? We have different levels from a starter to a professional package. Starters are as low as $50 a month for the software. And the chips are affordable, as I mentioned. We even have a few that are, a touch under $1, but most of them are in that range. Project concerns, well, how big is this to take on? Typically, IT get involved to make sure that it's kosher and fine, but it's the shop teams that roll this out. It isn't a big IT project. It's just people that are doing the equipment management that are using the system, and it's out of the box with all those forms and categories ready to go for the utility to a marketplace. And, the typical startup is about a week. It's some training that we can either do on site or you can do it remotely through the web, and then people start putting in their administration and it's off and running. So it's really not onerous. You start with something you can get your arms around, and you begin with your utility equipment managers. I'd like to open up the floor now to questions, and I'm going to just pull up. Let me just unmute everyone here with this dialog box. There we go. So if anybody has a question, I'll take them now. If not, thanks very much for joining. And we're always offering custom demos and discussion and service. If you'd like to contact us, we're available for that anytime. So thank you. And if anybody has questions, I'll take them now.
This is Richard Rendon with Safety Test. You there, Tom?
Hi, Richard. How are you?
Very good. My question is, when you put that label on that glove, and I see where you were rolling it on there, and then you go to a blow-up inspection, are you seriously not having any type of pulling from the edges during that blow-up inspection?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, Yeah, we find that once they're on and they're dry, they're fine. I wouldn't blow it up within a minute of putting on that adhesive patch. And we have taken this through Western High Voltage Test Center for several rounds of this process of, the dielectric, the dunk tank, the blow, the washing, and then pure dielectric testing on its own. And I have a certificate to that end. But we recommend there's a bit of a cure process of the chip, and then you can just completely let it go with any process thereafter. It will stick on immediately, so you can move the glove, but it's going to take a few hours for it to cure up properly and just kind of dry out on top of the rubber.
So my second question would be, is on our line hoses, they would be the most violent inside the washing machine. They would beat the daylights out of that tag on the inside of the drum. Has that been tested for long-term effect?
We have put them through drum testing and washing, but to be candid, that hasn't been out in the field for 4 years to go through, all those cycles. So I can't speak to multi-year exposure, but I can speak to going through initial testing. And you know what? I would encourage you to get samples of it from me and test it out and do your own analytics on how it performs with your products.
So, and then let's say that a label detaches, and you're going to have to reassign a new label at that point. Is there the software for unattaching and reattaching?
Yeah.
ID number?
Yeah, and in fact, you might have noticed on my demo, I had a glove with multiple RFID chips on it. And that's just my demo. I made it that way because I had 2 chips. But you can add new chips to it. You can replace chips. You can have multiples. We have dog hoses that have chips on each end because they're so darn long. So you can replace a chip, certainly, and it will store the old chip ID as a reference in the database, but then the new one comes in to be the active chip.
Okay, so when you get a chip, is it blank or is it already numbered and you're applying or if it's blank, you're applying your own number?
Right. So this is how it works. The chip has a unique factory-coded chip ID in it, and
whenever you have that ready, my man.
So the factory chip.
Please and thank you.
The factory chip is embedded at the factory with the unique number. There's no 2 in the world the same. So every chip already has a number. Now, some of these chips actually have storage capacity, so you could write to them. But we played with that in the past. It's limited. You can't put much data in. It takes a bit of a while to program them. And if you make a mistake, heaven forbid, you have to go out and find that chip and correct it. So we got right out of writing to chips a long, long time ago, like 12 years ago. And we just used the chip ID. So when you scan it, it drops the chip ID into your software, like you see here, E200034. And then that correlates, just like a serial number or a barcode, to information that you put there yourself. So that's a glove. It's a left-hand glove. It's a size 4, etc.
Okay, let's say that I have a serial number on the glove, but the chip has disappeared. But if I go into my software system and I type in the serial number that I associated with a certain chip, would I be able to find the original chip number so that I could get it out of the system?
You sure can. You sure can.
Okay.
I'm just seeing if I could pull up. Can you still see my screen okay?
No, we're not seeing your screen.
Oh, well, I have to share it. My fault. I'm sorry, guys. I thought I was still sharing it. Okay.
You understand what I'm getting at, Tom?
I do. And I was just going to show it. I was going to show it to you. So this Lineman glove is here, but you notice what I've got is I have a serial number and I have multiple chip IDs. So if the serial number wears out, go to the chip. If the chip falls off, shouldn't, but if it did, go to the serial number. You see, we have backup, and you can replace one after time.
Absolutely. Okay.
And I'll tell you, by law, there's still a lot of laws out there, and I've seen this in different industries, from hoses to lifting slings and all the rest. You do need human-readable identification. That's typically an OSHA standard somewhere in the fine print, human-readable. So we're not trying to tell you to get rid of serial numbers. We're improving it.
I just wanted to know whether or not I assigned a chip originally, and it's just missing when the tool comes back. That's
right.
My main purpose.
Right. And I had a client, I won't mention their name in the scenario, but they found that some of the team were not putting the serial numbers on anymore because they figured that, and then they were experimenting with a new design of chip that only lasted a year and a half, and then it cracked off with the band cracked, not the chip. And they figured, well, we're not going to do that with design anymore. We're going to try something different, but we don't know what stick this is, you know, because they forgot to put the serial number on. So we're talking about a mixed media solution.
I'm impressed.
And I don't want you to think that it's indestructible, because we know the tools aren't. We know the gloves aren't. Everything has a point where it breaks. We're stepping it up. We're digitizing it, and you know, we want to get more and more of this at the factory embedded. I mean, I think of a telescoping stick, and you can't really band one on. A barcode is great if you have a proper kind of barcode that sticks. They're hard to find. We make some, but I want that embedded. I want that little plug chip, like you see here, embedded at the top of that stick in the metal fitting, so that you can just zap it and it's permanently encased in there. So we're working and talking to those manufacturers, and pressure from customers, pressure from vendors helps that cause. If you don't have any of this technology, why would they put a chip in it? It's a tough thing. One of the gentlemen that was here from Columbus McKinnon on our session here, I've known him for, like, I don't know, 13 years. They've gone through these processes. They know what it's like to roll software out to their clients first. And as a team, we made sure that it was successful. But, you know, there's some moving
parts. Who are you talking about?
There he is. I didn't mention your name. Anybody else? I'm happy. Go ahead.
I would just echo what Tom's saying. If you're concerned about reliability of reading the tag, if you're concerned about recording the inspection information, an RFID system like this will save you untold number of hours every year.
Thanks, Mike. And yeah, so listen, we are recording. We're going to have this available. If people couldn't make it, I'll send out a link to the recording. I'm happy to take any more questions that might be out there.
One other thing, Tom, this is Richard again, Safety Test.
Yeah.
Your 32-minute demo that you did do is very fascinating for me to show upper management. Is that available just the way that you did it, or did you record that so that I can?
Yeah, I did.
Display that?
I should be.
Okay,
I think it's still recording. If not, I'll make sure I get one recorded. And I do these all the time, one-on-one, because you might have a scenario that is different than a strain stick or a glove, and we can come back and talk through it. You might. I had a call with a utility distribution company, and they didn't even want to see it yet. They just wanted to talk all about this ecosystem of how you could share, and how one company puts this in and the other guy gets to take it, and how that really works. Because, you know, the village to raise the child is the motive that made this go after, you know, 16 years for us at least. And doing this, we have literally hundreds of industrial distributors who test products running InfoChip, hundreds of companies, and global. And that is so imperative to actually try to track, you know, 5,000 chain slings or 400 hot sticks. It's a big deal to include everyone, and that's why I wanted to invite the whole supply chain to this call to showcase it. Okay.
Excellent demo, Tom.
Thank you, guys. And you know, you've got my contact information. Happy to come back and show more. You've given me a little more than half an hour, so at this point I'm going to wrap up the event. Thanks, everyone, and we're going to post this and get it out to everyone in a recorded view. Bye for now.
Thank you, Tom.
Thanks, Tom. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks.